Hello everyone, this is the Sports Spiral, and today I'm going to review all of the games that I picked for college football, though that it's all of the bowl games, and this includes the semifinals. I picked most of the bowl games for this season. I picked 18 of them in total, and my record was pretty good with a 12-6 record. But let's just get into it. The first game I picked was BYU versus UCF, and I thought UCF could keep this one much closer, but BYU dominates UCF 49-23. Gabriel was pretty good for UCF, throwing for 217 and 2 touchdowns, but not good enough. And UCF's running back McRae rushed for 77 yards and a touchdown. On the BYU side, Zach Wilson looked great, throwing for 425 yards and 3 touchdowns, and the running back Allgaier looked good as well, rushing for 173 yards and a touchdown. Okay, then the next one I picked was the Christmas Day game, and that was Buffalo versus Marshall. And Buffalo won a low-scoring game against Marshall. Remember, Marshall had a pretty good defense, and they went 17-10. And we're talking about Buffalo because they've got that really good running back Patterson, but they've got two really good running backs. Marks was the one that had the workload in this one, rushing for 138 yards and a touchdown. Their quarterback Vantries, 16 of 27 for 140 yards and an interception. Not great, but the running backs did great for Buffalo. And for Marshall, Welch was 13 of 20 for 114 yards, and the running back Evans rushed for 79 yards on 18 carries. So then the next game is Liberty versus Coastal Carolina in the Cure Bowl. Originally, this one was supposed to be played during the regular season, but they make it up in the bowls, so that's interesting. They probably on purpose that these two teams are playing each other, and Liberty wins this one in OT, 37-34 over the Chanticleers, giving them their first loss. And Willis was not very good through the air for Liberty. He threw for 220 and 2 interceptions, but he was great on the ground, rushing for 137 yards and 4 touchdowns. And for Coastal Carolina, McCall was pretty good through the air, throwing for 318, 3 touchdowns, and an interception. And he also rushed for 96 yards and a touchdown, but it wasn't enough to get Coastal Carolina the victory as Liberty slips past 37-34 in overtime. Okay, then we have the first Power 5 game that I picked, and that is Oklahoma State versus Miami, and Oklahoma State wins this one in a close one, 37-34. And actually, Miami starting quarterback Derek King was injured in this one, so that's why they opted out of the bowls, the injury risk, and they had to use Perry, but Perry was pretty good for the Hurricanes. He threw for 228 and 2 touchdowns, helping to make this a good game. Harris rushed for 52 yards and a touchdown for Miami. And for Oklahoma State, Sanders was excellent through the air, throwing for 305 and 4 touchdowns, and he also rushed for 45 yards, giving the Cowboys their victory over the Hurricanes. Then Texas handled Colorado 55-23, and Texas they benched Ellinger because they didn't want to get him hurt in his last game at Texas. He was 10 of 16 for 160 yards and a touchdown, though, so great through the air. And then they used Thompson, who was 8 of 10 for 170 yards and 4 touchdowns. So, yeah, that's for the future of Texas. They are going to have a new coach in the Alabama offensive coordinator, Steve Sarkisian. So, it's a short time for Tom Herman in Texas, and now we'll see if Sarkisian can do well with the Longhorns. And Texas running back Robinson rushed for 183 yards and a touchdown, and they played pretty well in defense too. Notre was 8 of 23 for 101 yards and 2 interceptions, and the Colorado running back Bruce rushed for 82 yards and 2 touchdowns, and Texas dominated Colorado 55-23. Okay, then we had the the Wake Forest Wisconsin game, and Wisconsin put up a lot of points in this one, winning 42-28. Their offense had been struggling, but they do well versus Wake Forest. March was 11 of 17 for 130 yards and a touchdown. Groshek rushed for 41 yards and a touchdown. And for Wake Forest, Hartman threw for 318 yards and 3 touchdowns, but was picked off 4 times, which helped Wisconsin win this one. Beal Smith rushed for 82 yards and a touchdown for the Demon Deacons, but not enough. Wisconsin puts up a lot of points, which is partially because of their defense, and handled Wake Forest. Then we have Oklahoma versus Florida, and we were all expecting this one to be a good game, but it's a blowout. Oklahoma all over Florida, 55-20. Florida's worst game offensively this season. Defensively this season, it was just not a good game for them. But to their respect, they did have many of those starters, including star receiver Kadarius Toney and the tight end Kyle Pitts, 2 really good receivers. And they did have some of their starters on defense out too, so it's not pretty for the Gators. Trask was not good, throwing for 158 and 3 touchdowns. So then they used Emory Jones in the second half, and Emory Jones rushed for 60 yards and a touchdown. And for Oklahoma, Rattler was good, throwing for 247 yards and 3 touchdowns. But Ramondre Stevenson had a really big game, rushing for 186 yards and a touchdown. Following the game, Florida did fire some of its coaches for the secondary. It's that secondary that's really been struggling this year. And so, this game was almost like a spring game to Florida. They had so many of their starters out. So, Oklahoma, they did look good. To all Florida's excuses, Oklahoma did look really good in this one. Defensively, offensively, all favorites of the game in this 35-point domination. Then we had the Iowa-Missouri game, but that one was canceled. So then we move on to the 31st, New Year's Eve, and Mississippi State won a close one against Tulsa, 28-26. Tulsa quarterback Smith threw for 347, a touchdown, and 2 interceptions, and the running back Taylor rushed for 85 yards and a touchdown. And for Mississippi State, they moved to 4-7 with the win. Rogers threw for 148 and a touchdown, and their running back Marks rushed for 72 yards and a touchdown to help lead the Bulldogs to their victory. Then we have Ball State versus San Jose State, 2 conference champions in the group of 5, and Ball State dominates San Jose State. We were not expecting this one. 34-13. Plitt throws for a touchdown for Ball State, and Jones rushes for 89 yards and a touchdown. On the San Jose State side, Stalker, who has looked good this season, threw for 1 touchdown, but was picked off 3 times, and Nevins rushed for 37 yards. And San Jose State suffered their first loss of the season in the Arizona Bowl. Then we have West Virginia versus Army, and I said in the preview of this that West Virginia is going to win because they're not as one-dimensional as Army, and they did win a close one over Army. Doge, 159 yards, a touchdown, and an interception for West Virginia. and the running back Brown rushed for 65 yards. And then for Army, Anderson didn't throw it much, 4 of 6 for 57 yards and an interception. And Tyler rushed it for 76 yards and 3 touchdowns for the Black Knights, but it's not enough. That ground game was not enough to bring them their victory, as West Virginia slipped by 24-21 to move to 6-4 on the year. Okay, so then we have the New Year's Day games. These were only 4 games, but they were all really good. Let's start with the Georgia-Cincinnati game. That was a thriller. Georgia was down 21-10, I believe, but they come roaring back with a field goal to win it. Daniels was pretty good for the Bulldogs. He was 26-38 for 392, a touchdown and an interception. White for Georgia was also pretty good, rushing for 39 yards and a touchdown. And for Cincinnati, Ritter was pretty good through the air, throwing for 206 and 2 touchdowns. And Ford was good on the ground, rushing for 97 yards and a touchdown. And this game really showed that there is still some defense left in college football. It's gone away. I think it's really just a thing because of this crazy season we've been having. But these two defenses are really good, and they've got great offenses as well. And Georgia prevailed in a close one in that one. Then we have Northwestern handling Auburn 35-19. Not a very good performance from the Auburn Tigers. Nick threw for 292 and a touchdown. He also rushed for 32 yards on 10 carries. And for Northwestern, Ramsey looked good, throwing for 291 and 3 touchdowns. Porter also rushed for another touchdown for the Wildcats. So the Wildcat offense looked better in this one. But Auburn does have a few excuses. I don't know how credible they are or good they are. But they did have quite a few opt-outs, injured players, more like, including the running back, Tank Bixby, I don't think he was an opt-out, though, because he's just a freshman. And so, yeah, Auburn, the defense didn't do too well going against the Northwestern offense that really doesn't have the best, but they are in a transition stage. They have their new coach. I don't know who's coaching this game, but yeah, so they lose 35-19, drop to 6-5 for Auburn. Okay, then we have the 2 playoff games, starting with the 4 o'clock Rose Bowl. Alabama handled Notre Dame 31-14 to move to 12-0 into the national championship. Good defense in this one. Notre Dame, that's 31 points for Alabama. That's the least points Alabama scored all season, from what I've seen. And so good defense from Notre Dame, but their offense can't get going. So yeah, also good defense from Alabama in this one. Buck 229 and an interception, not very good stats there. Williams did have a pretty good day, rushing for 64 yards and a touchdown. And on the Alabama side, they were still able to put up big numbers, but they were slowed down by the Notre Dame defense. Jones threw for 297 and 4 touchdowns, and Najee Harris had an excellent night, rushing for 125 yards. He's been looking really good. Devontae Smith, 3 touchdowns, so that Alabama offense still looking really good. But Notre Dame did do a pretty valiant job, but they did get blown out in that one. So then we have the All-State Sugar Bowl. Ohio State versus Clemson. This was a really good one last year, and it was a pretty good one. To start, for the first quarter, it's a tight game, and even the start of the second quarter. But then Clemson didn't pull away. Ohio State did. 49-28. Ohio State wins, and they pull off the upset with that chip on their shoulder. They blow out the Clemson Tigers 49-28. Fields looked great. He was injured, but he was able to keep fighting on. Threw for 385, 6 touchdowns and an interception. Fantastic stats there. Trey Sermon had a really good performance as well, rushing for 193 and a touchdown. So, yeah, great job from that Ohio State offense. And Clemson did get Stolsky was out because he had a targeting during the game, but they weren't very good with him. So, yeah, Clemson's defense really struggled. And Lawrence did have a pretty good performance for the Tigers, but not good enough. He threw for 400 yards and 2 touchdowns and an interception. Etienne was held in check, though, by the Ohio State defense, who did a great job, rushing for only 32 yards and a touchdown. And there we have it. It's Ohio State, not Clemson. And I'm glad it is because I'm kind of tired of this Alabama versus Clemson, Alabama. It's just getting a little annoying how the same team every year. And I know we had LSU last year, which was nice. So yeah, we don't have Alabama versus Clemson, Ohio State versus Alabama. I'll make one video specifically on that, and it should be a great game. And I guess we were kind of wrong about Ohio State. We thought they didn't play enough games, and that meant they couldn't get in. But it does seem like they are a really good team. Maybe we just didn't see that enough from them in the regular season. Maybe playing some more games would definitely have benefited their schedule. But yeah, it wasn't their choice because of this crazy season. And Ohio State is in the national championship. Then we have the final games on January 2. In the Gator Bowl, Kentucky slid past NC State 23-21. This is an example of the SEC domination in bowls. Kentucky was 4-6, and they beat an 8-3 NC State team. So now Kentucky is 5-6, NC State is 8-4, and so yeah, just a good job from Kentucky. Not too much on offense, but the running, good job on the ground. Wilson threw for 92 yards for the Wildcats. Rhodes, though, rushed for 148 yards, and NC State's offense was held in check. Hawkman, 268, a touchdown, and 3 interceptions. So a great job from that Kentucky defense. And Knight rushed for 52 yards and a touchdown. And the Wildcats defense gets them the win in this one. Then we have another lower SEC team beating a pretty good team in another conference, being Indiana. Indiana, though, I feel they would have more of a shot if they had Penix, but he was injured a few games ago. And yeah, the Ole Miss offense, just too much for this Indiana defense that has been great. Corral threw for 342 yards and 2 touchdowns, and on the ground, Paris rushed for 63 yards. For Indiana, Tuttle 201 yards and an interception, so not a great performance considering he was going against an Ole Miss defense that hasn't been very good. But the Ole Miss defense has been improving over the season, I think I would say. And for Indiana rushing, Scott rushed for 99 yards and 2 touchdowns, but it wasn't enough to win this one. Ole Miss moves to 505 after their 26-20 win over the Hoosiers. Then we have the final 2 New Year's 6 games. Iowa State handling Oregon 34-17. For Oregon, they used Brown as quarterback. Chuck and Brown. Chuck wasn't great. 7 of 9 for 79 yards and an interception. Brown 12 of 19 for 147 yards. So Oregon just couldn't get too much going offensively. Iowa State scored enough points to win. Dye rushed for 52 yards for Oregon, but for Iowa State, Purdy was 20 of 29 for 156 yards and a touchdown. Hall had a good game, rushing for 136 and 2 touchdowns, and Iowa State was able to handle Oregon in that one. Then we have Texas A&M over North Carolina, and this was a pretty good game. I was watching this one, and it's really good to start out, but then Texas A&M kind of pulled away. Kellen Mond, 16 of 26 for 232 yards. But on the ground, Austin had a great night for Texas A&M, rushing for 140 yards and 2 touchdowns. On the North Carolina side, they were able to put up a good amount of offense, but not enough against a pretty good Texas A&M defense. Howell threw for 234, 3 touchdowns and an interception, and Brooks rushed for 53 yards. But in the end, Texas A&M's offense overwhelms North Carolina, and they get the win 41-27. So that is all of the bowl games for this season. We have one more game left of college football. I will continue doing the NFL stuff and then maybe just some occasional news videos about the draft and trades in both the NFL and college. So it's 12-6 for the bowls, which I think it's pretty good. So yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Please make sure to subscribe, like, and check out my other videos. This is The Sports Spiral. Bye.